Edit it, can't you?
I can. So here we are again. We're in Mac Gregory's studio. And it's nice to see Mac again. And if you remember last time, the last video, we were talking about why artists do and the fact that you should, or it's helpful to do the art for yourself, not for the customer. That way you can access your true spirit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Mac was saying also about the fact that how having to create art for other people is very debilitating.
Well, it can be difficult because they tend to have a preconception of what they want, and if they start giving you lots of instructions, then in the end you say, really, you're better off doing it yourself. But,
yeah.
So I do roughly what I think they want, and with hope they like it, and 9 times out of 10 they do. I've only had one person reject what I've done, but I think that wasn't particularly on the work, but they didn't want to pay the price. So I think the first thing you should do before you accept a commission, you say what it's going to cost. And you should actually, if you're doing it, if you're going to be really professional, have a non-returnable deposit for the materials.
I agree with you there.
But I've never bothered. I've always trusted people and think, well, they're bound to like it. Perhaps I'm a bit arrogant. But I think the only reason he didn't have this was because, although he's quite a wealthy man, he didn't think the price. That's the feeling I got. I only heard through the grapevine.
Yes.
That what it was, but
it's a bit strange. Some people have got loads of money, but there's a reason they've got loads of money.
That's why they have got lots.
Yes, exactly.
Because they don't want to part with it.
No.
But I found some of my greatest clients in the past were people who actually. There's one lady who was she used to work on the Enigma.
Oh yeah.
She was very nice. She's dead now, but she used to send me a cheque each month, and then come and choose a painting when she'd reached the price.
Really?
Yeah. And she was very good. And I've also had that a postman used to pay a little gallery a long time ago, hundreds of years ago, in a gallery in Peterborough which no longer exists. But he used to take money in each week to the gallery and sell one of Mac Gregory's paintings, and when he'd reached the price, they'd have it. And I thought that was really great, but somebody really wanted something, and that was quite flattering, really, that they were willing to graft for it.
Exactly, and actually, that nowadays, that attitude of I'm going to pay a bit, I'm going to effectively the saving up, aren't they?
That's right.
Is sort of the road to self-reliance in a lot of ways. Yeah, you don't get anything until it's ready and you afford it.
Absolutely,
yeah. None of this sort of looking into the future and everything. But I found that when I was doing that art course at Boston College, you go in on the evening and it's like art on demand. So I assume that actually producing work for a specific customer is the same thing. It's art on demand. Yeah, and does it kill inspiration?
It probably would for me.
Yeah.
No, because I sometimes think you get on the treadmill, and I believe some galleries, if they take you on, I've been told this, whether it's true or not, but they tend to dictate what you paint then, because that's what they're selling. So in the end, I said you might as well work on petrol pumps, because you're just on the treadmill, you're not being creative.
No, indeed.
And often when you're painting, other ideas crop up because of the marks you made. You have, to me, I haven't got a preconceived idea in my head what the painting's going to be like, because if I have, I've already done it. So
and you don't want to do it again.
So I'm just copying something.
Yes.
So you make marks. You've got a rough idea which direction you're going, but certain things will express themselves. Even you'll either ignore it or accept it. And so it is really a voyage of discovery.
Yeah, so this is like when you're starting a painting, and I found this, you've got to get rid of that hesitancy of starting and just do a few bold ideas. It's like when I do videos, sometimes I'll do a video and start editing and go, now I know what to do, and this is exactly what I don't want to do, and I'd start again.
That's right.
So
yeah.
do you find yourself starting again?
You do make false starts, yes.
Yeah.
And I tend to have more than one painting on the go anyway, because normally I paint in oils. I don't use, sometimes I use acrylics as an underpainting, but oils are slow drying, acrylics is more immediate, and so if I have paintings which are drying or haven't quite finished, then I'll start something else. So it's nice to keep, same as I read books the same way. I have several books on the go. I don't read one book and finish it and then start another.
Is that because you fall asleep in the middle?
That's I don't understand big words.
Yes. Well, I'm finding now that you start reading and then you end up reading the same line a half a dozen times, and then suddenly you've lost 3/4 of an hour. Yeah, it's an age thing.
Well, if you speed read,
you
get through very quickly and you get the gist of the book. But often I read something and thought, well, that's rather nice, I'll read it again, and then I daydream. So I mean, if I always remember once reading something by D.H. Lawrence, whatever it was, I don't know, but he described a hedgerow. And I got lost in this, and I was thinking of the hedgerows and what I would see and so on. And about half an hour later, I thought I'd better start with what am I reading?
Coming back to that daydream thing, do you sometimes, does the inspiration for a particular theme come from a dream or a daydream?
It can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've mentioned once before, years and years ago, I had a couple of weird dreams. One was going to heaven, and we were queuing up at a bowling green. Why a bowling green, I don't know, because I don't do bowls. But anyway, these horsemen with cutlasses or scimitars or whatever coming across, chopping people's heads off. And then you sort of drifted off to heaven, and heaven consisted of lots of people standing on neon tubes, and they were wearing just black tights with a belt coming across it and a trilby hat. And we were standing on these neon tubes in something like a Dutch barn, but the roof was made of pegboard, and it was pouring with rain, and the rain kept dripping through these holes in the pegboard onto us. And I did start doing some preliminary drawings, which I found the other day. Must have done them 40, 50 years ago now. So I think, oh, perhaps I should do a painting of this one day. So that's an idea at the back of my mind.
So that might come out.
It may come out.
Sounds like Dada to me.
Yeah, good. A bit surrealistic, isn't it?
Exactly. But I think there's nothing wrong with all those sorts of Dada or surrealism, because it comes from your inner consciousness, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, I think John Byrne says, I am the slave to my subconscious. Yeah, because you're driven by this thing that you're not quite sure what's going on, but you're following what you found is amusing.
That's right. They sometimes say dreams are more real than reality. But
well, Carlos Castaneda says that, there's the dreamer in the dream. And the more you get into it, you realise that you are a product of the dreamer. The dreamer is dreaming you, which is like what? And all around us is just constructed within our imagination, and none of it exists. Which actually, sometimes the way things are going on, you really think you're in a surrealist.
Oh, you are, yeah. But the unfortunate thing, if in so-called reality you cut your finger, you know it, don't you?
You do. Yes.
In a dream, it's nothing.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, let's sort of come back to this inspiration of doing things. Yeah, last time we covered why or how, and we're sort of going into that, like, how do you get your inspiration? Where does it come from? Maybe it doesn't come from anywhere. Maybe you make a mark on the paper and that takes you.
Yeah, but it's got to be based on something you've seen, whether it's subconsciously or you've made a definite note of it. I've got loads of sketchbooks, and I look at them, and sometimes they're meaningless. I've made notes, with shorthand notes, which I've forgotten because I've changed my shorthand since. But no, I think you always have something to start with, some thought or other. But it's as you're going along, you know, it changes, but you have a starting off point. I do.
Yeah.
I can't speak for everybody else. So I have a starting off point, and in the past it's been fen landscapes, and because I like the flatness, because obviously you haven't got so far to fall. But and now,
That's right. You don't suffer from altitude sickness.
Don't have altitude sickness, anything like that. And now I'm living by the sea. It's just a liquid fen, and so I'm still dealing really with horizontal lines, a little bit of perspective here and there, which I vary.
Yes.
Because obviously, as you know, as I've said before, we don't see in rectangles or squares, and we have peripheral vision as well, and we're always on the move. So, in a way, perspective is a bit of a false thing, because you have to assume that all points on the canvas are the same distance from the eye, which they're not. If you put your head inside a sphere, then all the points on the sphere are the same distance from the eye. So really you start off with 2 and 2 makes 5. And so then the perspective seems to work. If you've got a bit of perspective in that one there.
This one here?
Yes, yeah.
Let me see if I can just spin round and see if I can get there. I think we can. Yeah. Yes, you've got these lines going to there.
Yeah. So that is linear perspective, but I've messed about with colour as well. And tried to get the effect of a coldish winter's day, really.
And this is a Father Ted image where he's saying to Dougal, and he's got that plastic cow in his hand. Yeah. So yeah, I can't remember how it goes. This is small and they're far away.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I got one of yours, and I've shown it in another video. I think it was with Southwold.
Oh, right.
And there's just so much perspective in that, yeah, and so many lines going just slightly different, but it's so, I love it, I absolutely love it. But tell us about this one behind your head, this painting here, because this like not your normal range now.
It isn't. Long time ago, a late friend did up an old car for me, and I gave him a couple of paintings.
Yes.
And he said to me, the car won't last as long as the paintings. But this, I think, was one of them, and he died, and somebody picked up and they said, I've got some of your paintings. And I said, well, they're not mine, they're yours, if you've inherited them. Well, obviously he didn't want them. I don't know whether they were out of conversation or what. But anyway, this one was in a very poor state, but it was of a golf course in late evening. And since then I've been messing about with it. I've been trying to play about with mist and just shapes.
But you've got perspective in that a lot, haven't you?
Well, in as much that perhaps the colours go back a bit, but there's no linear perspective as such, you know, where you see a couple of parallel lines appearing to meet at infinity.
But that one, you obviously, it's like with colour and size, you're saying that those are
there is a sense of space.
Yes.
Whether I'm happy with it, I don't know. I should probably end up chopping it up.
Chopping it up?
Yeah, because it's not what I do now.
Right.
But so obviously I'm using something which at the time was me.
Yeah.
And I felt it was right, but now of course I've moved on and I'm not seeing it in the same way as I did then.
Right.
So I do tamper with old paintings. Many I ruin, some I do improve, because normally with a painting it is of that time and it's an immediate time. And as I said to you before, it's got spontaneity, it's quick. It might be a bit loose, and you look at it the next day when you're obviously in a different frame of mind, and you think, well, it really does need a bit tightening up, now wants a bit more structure. And the danger is then you have to lose a certain amount of spontaneity to get a bit more structure. This is how I feel. I can't tell anybody else. So if you're not careful, you lose the spontaneity and end up with a fairly structured, well-formed painting, which is boring. So you've lost that initial...
No mystery.
So absolutely, you've lost the mystery. So it's knowing when to stop, finding the balance between... I mean, you can do like painting in the premier coup and think, oh, that's a one-off and it's good and it's got liveliness and it has a certain amount of structure and it works. And as I said before, if you do a very loose painting, most people like them because they finish it off mentally how they would see it.
Yes.
It wouldn't be the same as you or anybody else because each person is different. I mean, there's no such thing as art, only artists.
You've said that before.
Yes, I have, yeah.
Yeah.
And the art that is produced is as varied as the people that produce it. I mean, a lot of it you may not like. I mean, I know what I like. I know what I like. And I know when people say to me, who's your favourite artist, I usually say me. Which is rather arrogant, because I do get filled with self-doubt quite a lot.
I think we all get self-doubt. Yeah, but it's actually self-doubt, as long as you don't take it too seriously, can contribute. Am I doing this right? Am I not? And I find that sometimes I might muse upon something for like 2 or 3 weeks and then go, that's a load of, it's fine. Or it's not.
Yes,
or I don't like, and then you'll change something and you'll know whether you're right or not. Yeah.
But, I mean, some of my better painting I've been really upset. What I regard better, I mean, this is more important. If I think it's good, not really bothered with anybody's, but if they like it, give me money for it, it's a real big compliment. But sometimes with work I might put it to the wall and about 4 years later look at it and think, oh, that's not a bad effort, I'll carry on.
Yeah.
So I don't throw anything away initially.
No.
So I'll keep it. I mean, I might have it 2 or 3 years before I look at it again and then work on it. By then my attitude towards colour will have changed anyway.
Right. And your physicality, etc. But I mean, some of the old masters, you see on some of these investigative programs, where there's several paintings underneath. Yeah, so it's rather like us with our Marmite jar midden. Yeah, you could be creating a mystery by having other paintings underneath. So you say you talk about you're going to cut that up. Are you actually going to cut it up in half and use the board again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's just, is that oil tempered hardboard?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah.
I tend to paint on it. I really like painting on plywood. I find that a nice surface. I paint on canvas as well.
Yeah.
But of course canvas is can get this,
Stretch.
It can change shape, it can get cut, it can get damaged. I mean, the only reason they use canvas, I think, is because you could just roll them up and put them on a pack horse and cart it off somewhere else. It was good for transportation.
Right, although surely the paint will crack and stuff.
No, but they used to roll it so you have to paint outwards, I think. Yeah, and then put it on the pack horse. Yeah, I mean, it will crack up to, I mean, lots of oil paint will crack in time anyway. It's always on the move. And it suffers from linox and it'll go yellow when you put it in the sunlight and the yellow will bleach out. And lots of oil paints are fugitive or will be fugitive. I mean, you don't keep the colour indefinitely, but then obviously I should be dead by the time they start changing.
Well, exactly, and then it's an SEP, isn't it? Someone else's problem.
It is.
So, yeah, interesting that. So you might actually cut that up and put something else over the top.
If it doesn't turn out as I would like it.
Yeah. I mean, do you? My view of that is, it's an everyday landscape and there's not that much going on. What do you see in it?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm asking you. I'm putting you on the spot here, Matt.
That's what I'm trying to see in it at the moment. It isn't quite, it's not mysterious enough for me. People have said a lot of my paintings which they like are lyrical, so that's not lyrical enough for me.
Right, yes.
It lacks poetry.
Well, you could be driving anywhere and you could see that sort of scene, couldn't you? Even on a motorway, you could see that. Yeah.
Does that matter?
I don't suppose so. It's a representation of something, isn't it?
You see, I'm not wanting to be photographic.
No.
You can admire photorealism, and you do see some phenomenal paintings. And I think, why didn't they use a camera? You know, and,
They probably did to start with.
oh yeah, and to me, although I can admire their skill, and skill and drawing ability isn't necessarily art. It's got to have something extra. It's got to have a different ingredient in it. It's got to become a Mac or whoever does it. And if I was just doing something photograph, I mean, I know you can get very artistic photographs. It all depends who's operating the camera.
That's right.
And but I like, and again, I'm not. I don't analyse my paintings. I don't consciously analyse it. Oh, this should be there. It comes as a feeling. You get artists that are very analytical, and some are more. Oh, I did write. I've got a terrible memory because it's galloping towards 90. My mind's going with it.
I think you're doing very well, and I'm judging that on myself.
Yes, but I've got here. I've found an old note that I'd written before. I've got something about analytical, spontaneous, and synthetic, and so on. And I think I must have been thinking about cubism at the time. And I'll put here, I'm not responsible for how others think. And see, with cubism, for example, you've got the synthetic is where they build up shapes in a cubist manner, and the analytical is where they're trying to get more than one viewpoint on the flat surface.
Yes. Picasso was right into that.
Picasso and Braque, they were the two main proponents. And it was really, they were taking Cézanne a step further forward, because Cézanne is considered the father of modern art. But he was quite right. He thought everything would be broken down into geometric shapes, like in nature you get a sphere, cube, cylinder, cone. And Picasso then was thinking of how do I get more than one aspect of a person's face, for example. So he was trying to get the side view, back view and front view. At
the same time.
So it's almost like a sculptural painting. Sculptors have got it easy, they can walk around, it's already there. They just have to be pretty fit.
But a painter doesn't have to make the back.
No. I mean, the painter's got the difficult job. I mean, if I'm going to be very conventional, painter's got the difficult job of trying to make something look solid, which isn't.
Which is flat.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So his problems are totally different. But see, with sculpture now, even the holes in it are part of the sculpture because they're enclosing air, which is a space that is your negative area as opposed to the positive area.
And shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they think of all that. So they've got a lot of problems in their own way, but painters have a different set of problems.
I think painting is easy to transport.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you can take the box and this and that and the other. Whereas if you're a sculptor,
you've got problems.
You've got problems, especially if you're into big lumps. Yeah. I
used to live next door to the guy. He's dead now, King James. And I think he made a big mammoth for hovering gravels, and that had to go on a low loader with a police escort. So that was good publicity.
Oh. It was ginormous then.
Yeah, but. No, I think sculptors do have problems, unless they make little maquettes.
Yes.
For people to work on, but then it's taken out of their hands, it's once removed again, isn't it?
It is, it is.
I like to be in total control. I mean you doing pottery, you're at the risk of the clay blowing up in the kiln, which you can't control, can you?
There's so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah. And this is what I don't like. And I want to know that if anything's going wrong, it's my fault on there, and I've got to rectify it. So I like to be in complete control. Other people might think I'm totally out of control, but I like to think when I've finished a painting that I'm happy with it. I'm not always happy, but that I'm reasonably happy. And then if I put it away and look at it later, I decide whether I'm happy or not with it.
Looking at something 3 to 6 months later, and the same as when you're writing something, 3 to 6 months later, it says different things to you.
Absolutely.
Totally different. Yeah. And sometimes you go, oh, I didn't mean to say that. Yeah, and that's where World War III starts. With that, thank you very much, Mac. That's a brilliant conversation.
Thank you.
Cheers for now.